a host
of golden
daffodils.
Hi, I'm Ian Roof and welcome to Get Gardening. On this week's video we're looking at wonderful narcissi.
Yellow is the colour of springtime. Even behind me, here we are in a cold greenhouse on a grey day. The rain is falling outside, but in here it's springtime, and I've got Euryopus pectinatus over my shoulder, flowering its head off. Outside, so are these.
Now, what some of you may not realise, unless you, like I, pore over the bulb catalogues, is there are so many different types of daffodil, from those with reflex petals, split coronas or trumpets, we've got doubles, we've got tiny little narcissi, and they all come up into different groups. I'll let Ian tell you more.
Narcissi come in a range of shapes and sizes, and roughly speaking there are about 12 or 13 classifications of them. But from a gardener's point of view we probably don't need to worry about that too much, but you will hear more about it as we go on. This one I must talk about because it is the nation's favourite narcissi. It is of course Tete-a-tete, which is sold in its millions around the UK, and it's produced in abundance not only up in sort of Wisbech and the Fen area, but also imported from Holland. And you can see why it is such a popular little thing. It's, well, miscellaneous, we think, in its group, but some books will say cyclaminous. It's got probably unknown parentage. It was a hybrid that appeared from a work of nature. And here we have again short stems, compact habit, and in a windy British spring, these little plants really do stand up well to the ravages of the weather might throw at them. And of course we've got slightly orange trumpet there as well. And look at that bloom, just absolutely lovely.
This is one of my all-time favourites. It's a little species plant and it's called Narcissus cyclaminous. You can see why it's called cyclaminous because its outer petals are completely flared back, and that is the little modified trumpet. Now from that delightful, diminutive, beautiful little variety, other cyclaminous varieties have been raised, and this is one of them. Another favourite of mine, this is called Jetfire. I suppose it's supposed to look like a blast from a jet engine. I don't know, but it's lovely. Again, it has these swept back petals, not quite as swept back as the original cyclaminous, which is there, but it has an orange trumpet. Absolutely delightful. Now, these are just two of my favourite narcissi. Not daffodils, remember, narcissi. The others are varieties that were bred probably from the mid-Victorian period, the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, right up to just before the First World War in 1914. These today are much sought after and are collectively and rather beautifully known as old ladies. Isn't that nice?
Now, many daffodils have very slender grass-like foliage, and some of them naturalise incredibly well in grass, like the patch behind me. Now, some groups of daffodils do this better than others. One of my favourites is the bulbocodium, which you only see in certain nurseries. It's the hoop petticoat narcissi. Glorious yellow daffodil, tiny, very slender green leaves, and the petticoat comes from this funnel-shaped corona or trumpet. Tiny little petals or perianth segments that come off that trumpet. It's very unusual looking and fantastic in a swathe of grass.
But there are a few other things that you must remember when growing them. It's really important that once these lovely little flowers are finished, you allow the foliage to die down. Now, it can sometimes look unsightly, but any good plants person will combine foliage and other spring plants with them to cover up the leaves as they die down. But that leaf dying process is important because all that goodness is being drawn back into the bulb, which will give you lots and lots of good flowers next spring. And also a feed doesn't go amiss as well. A good tomato food, any tomato food, high in potash, put it on when the plant is just sort of going over from its flowering stage, and it will take that in. It will help yet again plump up that bulb at the base and give us good flowers year on year. And we get asked many, many times on various panels that I sit on, well, why aren't my narcissi flowering? Well, It could be because you've planted them too shallowly. They like to be in relatively deep. It could be that you've taken off the foliage too soon, or you've tied it into little knots with bits of baler twine or rubber bands round it to tidy it all up. You've really got to just let nature take its course, and by the plant taking in all that sunlight, it'll produce wonderful crops the following year. Now, if you want any recommendations of what I grow at home, I grow a wonderful group called the jonquils, and there are many varieties in that group, and they're a relatively small narcissi, multi-headed. They produce 3 or even 4 blooms per stem, and the reason I grow them is because they stand up to the spring weather really, really well, and their fragrance is second to none. They are the most beautiful, sweetly scented blooms, not only in the garden, but I always cut a few and put them in a vase in the house, and they really do smell absolutely exquisite.
These today are being, well
Is the hoop petticoat.